Hi everybody, it's Dr. Solano Hatt and welcome to my office. It's our very first chat with Hatt and I'm really excited to just spend some time with you. Those of you that are already our clients, I appreciate your support, and those of you that are just looking to get some information from a veterinarian, I'm here to help you and just give a little bit of support to my fellow colleagues here in Solano County. My background here is I am a veterinarian and graduated in 2001 from Washington State University, and so I have a practice in Hawaii as well as here, and just have really enjoyed the pet care community for the last, oh my gosh, 18 years. My goodness, don't let it show. So if you are wondering something, I thought some of my team had said, tell us something fun about you, because I tend to be all business if you don't notice. And so something fun that people may not know about me is I used to be in show choir in college, and I was Wonder Woman, believe it or not. So it was like my dream come true, because I was Wonder Woman for Halloween, probably when I was about 8 years old, and I insisted on having all the fabulous curls, like, oh gosh, I can't remember her name now, that actress, but she was gorgeous. That's all I gotta say. So I had to be just as pretty as her. And so to be able to do it again, how fun. But anyway, why nutrition, right? I am actually really excited about this talk. In the last 3 years, I've really noticed an increase in nutrition for our pets, and a lot of sort of deep grass to navigate through. I have walked into PetSmarts, I've walked into Petco's, and just seen the overwhelming confusion that could come up by these beautifully marketed bags of food. And I would expect a lot of very good intentions that are happening, you know, from the food production community as well as you as a pet owner. Some of the things I wanted to try to explain is to try to help you navigate with some really quick tools. If questions come up, I'm happy to have you answer them. At least you just might have to send us a message through Facebook so that I can get to you. I already had a couple of first row students that already sent me a couple of questions, so I will definitely address those today. And that actually helped and guided me, because I love to do some research on some things I'm not as familiar with, and so this was very helpful. The first thing I'm going to say is I am not a nutritionist. I am a veterinarian. That is all. So what I'm going to bring to the table for you, kind of funny, see, there's my puns, right? We're talking about food, so I got to bring stuff to the table, is to be able to share what veterinary nutritionists have told me, what specialists have told me and shared with me, so I can give that to you. The first real thing I want to discuss with you is pet food, and where that name actually came from. It actually was from the turn of the century, back in the 20th century, and what folks that sold pet food noticed is that there was a relationship that was starting to develop between humans and their dogs and cats. They weren't just a working breed or a work animal. They didn't have this, or a food animal, let's say, growing them for food, or growing them for, or just having them for just working the fields, that type of thing. There was an actual cuddle component that was starting to come into play. And so originally, pet food was called feed. And if you will notice, some of the actual assessors of food or pet food is actually by AFCO, which is the Association for American Feed. I always have to look that up. Feed control officials. And so feed, you'll catch that, okay? The word feed sounded very demeaning to that human-animal bond, so they changed it to food. And voila, we had something that was absolutely acceptable for that human being to feed their pet, okay? However, from that initial marketing plan that came up, it started to cause a bit of confusion for folks. Then folks started to believe then that their human food should be the same as their pet food, and they just assume that a lot of the regulations should be exactly the same. They're not, okay? They're not, and that's not a bad thing. Humans are humans, and being a veterinarian, I tend to tease my human medical folks, saying, as a veterinary medicine, a doctor of veterinary medicine, you go ahead and handle your one species, because I got all the rest, right? We have to respect as a veterinarian that each species of animal, dog, cat, cow, they have different nutritional needs because they have different digestive systems. Well, guess what? So do humans. So to try to pigeonhole dogs and cats and humans into one, when I explain it like that, seems a bit silly, doesn't it? So now as we start to approach looking at food, here's one thing that I got asked, so I'm just going to go right into it because I don't think I have a ton of time and I could talk for about an hour and a half to 2 hours on this. The one question I got was raw food. That has been a super hot commodity. How do we discuss raw food? And I had one specifically asking about her Cavalier King Charles. She's gotten some suggestions that that is a better food. They tend to market themselves as a diet that is great for teeth, hair coat, just longevity, and let's get them back to their wolf roots. Well, remember what I said before about being a veterinarian and understanding different species? You can know, those of you that have multiple pets in your household, if you have one breed of dog and another breed of dog, they tend to have different needs, don't they? Wolves are, while they're under the same sort of genus and species they're finding as dogs, domesticated dogs are not wolves. Okay, so those types of things are what is important to understand as you're going through this. So a wolf, while it goes and hunts for its food, they're saying, you know, well, it eats a lot of protein and it needs all this stuff to be able to grow big and strong. I have traveled to third world countries. I have yet to see a dog go hunt for its food. You know where it's at? It's behind the dumpster at that really yummy restaurant you just ate at. Okay? Their digestive system has adapted over time to be able to just receive the carbohydrates and all the proteins that we make and that we give. That's what they can tolerate. So what's the big deal about raw? Well, what's come up with raw is that there are actual bacterias and pathogenic bacterias, pathogenic meaning bad, that can be fed to your pet and without you realizing it can actually transmit to you. Per the FDA, it's actually a public health concern. You don't actually have proof as to where these foods are being made, and if it's raw, imagine yourself when you're cooking raw chicken on your counter and then you just leave it. Maybe you kind of wipe it up. I don't know. I actually don't know. I haven't really studied and gone to an actual plant that produces raw diet. But typically the raw component is only about the meat. The other components, such as the vegetables and the fruits that are added to it, may be raw or not. But typically, if they're bagged, they need to go through some sort of pasteurization process to be able to be safe for your pet. So with that, we're going into then trying to figure out, are these healthy or not? What I've started to realize in talking to a lot of my clients is that labels are confusing to read, right? The one way for me to feel better as a pet owner is to be able to understand what's on the label. You know, if I see turkey meat, beets, green beans, sweet potato, and maybe some gelatin, I know what those are. So this must be a great food. And you go to another pet food label and there's all sorts of alphabet soup stuck together with a couple of dashes and numbers. That must be terrible because I don't understand what that is. That's human nature. If I don't understand what something is, I don't want it, right? And now as a pet parent, you're taking full responsibility because you're trying to protect that relationship you have with that sweet little innocent creature that lives in your home. Well, what's going on is those recipes aren't necessarily nutritious enough. I have just gone to a seminar in Tahoe where a cardiologist talked to us, and she has specifically seen an increase in heart disease in cats and dogs who are eating raw. Why? Because a lot of the recipes that are being made with raw are only made with meat, and as well as other, beets and sweet potato like I just mentioned before. What's wrong with that? Meat actually, like muscle, if you look at the muscle that comes from that animal product, 14% protein. 14%, let me say that again, 14% protein only in the meat, in that muscle tissue. Where is all the protein at? Ask the wolf, get on National Geographic. What are they eating first? The intestine, the liver, the kidney, the lung. And what do they leave behind? That bicep. Honey, you can have that turkey leg because I'm nutritionally fulfilled with the 80% protein that are in those intestines. But you know what intestines and lungs and stomach are called on your food bag? Byproduct. Oh my gosh, as a human being, I would never eat byproduct. Well, let's talk about that. When you were sick as a little kid and mom made your chicken soup, she made it from chicken stock, byproduct. And then you had a sore throat, so all you could eat was Jell-O, gelatin, byproduct. So you can't tell me you don't eat byproducts and that those aren't, fair for human consumption, because you ate it your whole life. And it's probably in everything that you're eating right now. If you're having your lunch right now, guaranteed it's there, because it's nutritious. It's okay to have. And so that's all I can really talk about with raw, is that it is not necessarily fully pasteurized, but I just am not finding, at least it's sort of a newer food. There really isn't enough research on it for me to say, absolutely, this is a good diet. What I'm seeing, I'm not impressed with. The heart disease that's coming up on breeds of dogs and cats that typically don't even manifest this type of disease, typically don't have any predisposition for this disease, are showing up in my office. Okay? We had one woman who was importing her cat food from Italy. She was very proud at what she was providing for her pet. That cat has heart disease, and it's only 2 years old. How do I tell that owner, it's your fault? I'm not going to say that. Never going to say that, okay? I know that it's very hard. You are very busy people. You are trying to look for a solution that makes sense quickly. But be a truth seeker. Look things up and see. The second thing I want to talk about is grain-free diets. That's been another huge issue. So grain-free, I had to write some things down for that, because essentially we're finding also that where did grain-free even come from? Grain-free started in about 2007 when China had a major recall for an additive that would basically contaminate a bunch of grain. And so there were recalls that went off the shelf. How did the human consumer market deal with that for their pet? It was, oh my gosh, this is my food, my dog must be allergic to corn. And so people ran with that. Here's the truth. Corn allergies are less than 5%, cause allergies in less than 5% of dogs. That's pretty incredible to see that, okay? And so with that, then why is corn considered a filler? Well, I've used this analogy a lot of times, so forgive me if it's a bit disgusting, but if you eat corn on the cob at your 4th of July barbecue, you're probably going to notice that corn the next day when you use the bathroom. However, that lemon meringue pie that grandma made that was made with corn starch, you don't see that. What happens in the food industry when they're actually making that recipe is that corn husk and the little corn kernel is peeled. There is a huge amount of protein in that corn, and there's a lot of fillers in there. So grain-free is actually not so bad. Okay, or grain-free, excuse me, is bad. Grains are okay to have. That's the thing that's really important. I have laughed at people that have said, oh, I feed my cat grain-free food. Do you? Oh yeah, because cats don't eat grain in the wild, but don't they eat the mouse that eats the grain? So I guess there's probably some grain in that diet, isn't there? The important part is that when you really read your labels, and if you're interested in actually like how to read labels, nutrition talk, please send us a message and request that, because I'm always looking for something to provide you just that navigational tool to be able to take care of your animal. We are on the same team, and I want to be sure that you can understand exactly what you're doing. And I realize you don't have a lot of time, and so that's my job, okay, as that general practicing veterinarian, to look up those things for you to give you the best advice that I can. One quick site that I can give you is to look at the Association for American Feed Control Officials, AFCO. You can ask a lot of these questions. They will define human grade food versus non-human grade food. They will define organic. They will define natural. These are words that you take for granted that you think you understand because of your own human feed or human food requirements and what you've been told are good for your health. Animals are different. So if there's some key components I could give you about today's talk, respect the fact that you love that pet of yours dearly, but they are a different species than you. Don't make your dog a human. They aren't. and nutritionally they could be to a detriment if you don't feed them appropriately. I really believe that if you look at that label and if you find the AAFCO mark on there, then that may be a good food. There should also be a veterinary nutritionist on staff, because a veterinary nutritionist understands where that species came from, what they were intended for, and what nutritional requirements they may have. And so these are really important. Furthermore, you should be able to contact those food companies and be able to get an answer. Is this food good for my pet? How many feeding trials have you done? Up to what age groups? You know, there are things that you would want to know for your own child that, you know, your pets are no exception. And they deserve it, you deserve it. And so I hope this gives you a little bit of guidance on nutrition, mainly about raw and about grain-free. And feel free to, like I said, message us anytime if you want to send a picture of your food label and say, help, I just don't know, you know, and I want to know, because I thought that grain-free was great and I criticized everyone on the whole planet for, you know, not feeding it, and now you're telling me I might be the one that's wrong. It's just the newest research. You deserve to have progressive medicine given to you and at your fingertips here. And so I'm hoping to be one of those advocates for you and your pet, because I heartily believe in the human-animal bond, and you deserve the best years of their lives. All right? Have a great afternoon. We'll talk to you soon.